Hey everyone, so welcome back to In the Studio. So this is episode 3, this is Blank Canvas, and today we're talking about getting your initial ideas for a script and just getting stuck into it. It doesn't necessarily have to be starting the script yourself, it can just be, as long as you get that idea down in some form, you are taking the blank canvas and you're painting it with your ideas and you're doing something new, you're pushing yourself forward with a bit of momentum, and I think that's a healthy thing to do.
The good thing with a blank canvas that I've always found, I'm a big pen and paper kind of guy, so I like to, post it note here from work. If I have an idea, jot it down. You don't even have to write it necessarily, you could draw it out, and I'm a terrible artist, but I find with the process that I'm kind of trying to improve, and this is a big reason why I'm enjoying the series and the idea behind it, with me when I write scripts, or quote unquote write scripts, I get a big idea, kind of gestate on it for a while, and then just poof, it comes out of me, and I burst about 12 pages, and then I find it really hard to get stuck back in and carry on with it. So that's something I'm dealing with and trying to progress with. But that's annoying, my GoPro died whilst I was mid-flow. But what I'm trying to say is, with these episodes, the intent is always to not necessarily give you a right answer, because there isn't one. It's individual, it's personal preference. This is hopefully some more tips, like the planning episode, and how to go about this particular phase of the script writing process. And my 2 cents on that is, just do it any way you can. It doesn't have to necessarily be written. It can be drawn, it can be on your notes in your phone. I find that when I get a story, I just, even if it's one scene, I'll just write it in the notes on my phone, and it'll be very brief, but like, X character does this happens, maybe a few shot ideas. It's just about unlocking that potential within yourself to be comfortable with even writing badly, because admittedly, first drafts aren't going to be great. You might hit luck sometimes with the first draft and it'll be amazing, but 9 times out of 10, it's not going to be the script you hope it's going to be, but don't let that deter you, because it's all about refining it and going back to it and getting that craft honed so you can have something you're really proud of. So I hope with this episode you'll find something to take away from it that you can implement into your blank canvas and start writing.
Hello, my name's Nick, for those of you who don't know me. I'm part of the team at JumpCut Online and JumpCut Studios, and I'm here today to talk to you about confronting the blank page in screenwriting, which is every writer's worst fear. It's daunting, and we all know that. That's why that fear exists. But there are some easy steps you can do that I utilise sometimes in order to get past that. Following on from previous video, we've got different schools of thoughts on how people prepare and plan going into writing a script. So I'm going to go over a couple of options for both of those scenarios. So I think the first point to make is that you're sitting down in front of a blank page because you come up with an idea in your head, whether that is a single idea or a single theme or a single scene even, that's fine. Or if you've got A, B, C all the way through to the beginning to finale, you know exactly how things are going to plan out. But either way, you're sitting down in front of this blank page because you want to write something, and you feel that you feel that this idea is good enough to warrant your time to sit down and write something, because it does take a lot of time. So, if you haven't planned, if you're just one of those people that likes to, you've got sort of your protagonist and your antagonist sorted out, and you know what the idea is without knowing the scene by scene breakdown, you must have got to a point where you were like, oh, that scene would be really cool, and that's the reason you want to write this project. So write that scene. You don't have to, writing a script does not have to be a chronological thing. You don't have to begin at the first page of the story. That's fine. You can drop in it anyway. You can write the finale first if you want to. If you know exactly, you think, oh, that would be a really great finale, write that first. That's absolutely fine. But write whatever will get you writing and sort of unlock the creative juices, for want of a better phrase. So, yeah, if you're writing a horror story, for example, and you've come up with this really great sort of set piece that you think will be really good and really scary, write that down. It doesn't have to be perfect. That's another thing at the point I should make here. there's the old saying, which is banded around every time that at me, it's thrown at me every time that I get a bit of writer's block, and I'm sure I've thrown it around to other people as well, is you can't fix a blank page. If you've got something down, it doesn't have to be perfect. That's what a first draft is for. So as long as you have written a scene and you've got down basically what you want to happen, you can touch up the action, you can make that better, make it flow better, and like condense it if needs be, and then you can make the dialogue much better as well further down the line. If you are somebody who does plan meticulously, and you know every single one of your scenes and what's going to happen in each of those scenes, and and you've got a list, your character list and character biographies all done, you know exactly what's happening. But you can start chronologically. You can start, if you're that confident enough, you can say, right, first scene, first line, I know exactly what needs to happen here. It may come to a scenario that you've planned this meticulously, and you're trying to get to that first scene, and you're like, I can't really get this to work how I want it to do. Two options: write it anyway, that's fine, like I said, you can come back and fix it later, just move on, keep the momentum going. Or pick a scene that you know that you can write, and I would suggest picking a scene that has your protagonist in it, and has them sort of either doing something more than just sort of like wandering around, or like is actually doing something like important to the narrative plot, or is conversing and interacting with other characters. Because I say that because it's a really good way to get early on to get into the mindset of your protagonist, so you can get used to the way they talk, the way they move, the way they correspond with others, the way they act, the way they respond to scenarios. You can get used to that early on. So that scene there might be a scene that fits the bill, that's 60-70 pages in, that's fine, write that, and then when you've got used to that, you can jump back to the beginning, or you can carry that through from page 60 to the end, it doesn't matter. But pick a scene that you know, you've planned it all out meticulously, you've got X amount of scenes, pick one of them that you think will benefit you in terms of getting words down on a page, because you're confident of being able to do it and you know what happens in that scene, and it will help you unlock the rest of it. It is tricky writing a first page and facing a blank page, and like we said in the previous episode, planning is a big part of that, but there's no written or unwritten rule about planning. So it's just coming to terms with yourself. That's what the most important thing is. It's being comfortable in your own mindset that you know when you write something down on the page for the first time, it's not going to be as good as you want it to be. Some scenes, you might write a 100-page script, and a fifth of the page, 20 pages of the script might be like, that is exactly how I wanted that to go. The other 80 pages, that's fine. That's what a second draft is for. Just get it done, beginning to end. And I think momentum is a really important thing when it comes to screenwriting, which is why personally I always try to do at least a vague scene by scene outline. I don't want to like constrict myself to saying, oh, that's got to happen here and that's got to happen here and they've got to say that here, but I like to have a B vague outline of what's going on, but also give myself enough flexibility to change as we go, because that allows me to write with momentum. I hope that's useful. Again, I'm at Nick__Dean on Twitter, and then there's all the team at JumpCut Studios are contactable on Twitter, and we don't know everything about it. We're starting on our journey together at the same time. We're very much in the early stages of our aspiring careers as film writers and filmmakers, but we're always there and to talk to people, and we think that, well, we've always found so far that filmmaking is a completely collaborative experience. So we're not experts, but we're happy to share advice that we've found, and we're still taking advice from people that we speak to every single day as well about it. So there's not an exact science, but the only thing you can do is keep momentum and write anything.
So I think what's really interesting about this series for our team as well is that it's as much a resource for us as it is for the audience. A big part of this series really is kind of getting used to practicing what we preach, and that's definitely summed up in this episode for me, with the idea of kind of confronting that blank page. It's definitely something that stopped me from writing many a times. It's a really easy excuse for procrastination when you've got that blank page sat there, and I don't know, it's a weird thing. You kind of feel a little bit less guilty about not putting words down on a blank page as opposed to actually finishing a script. For me, once a script started, I can fly through that and get that momentum going and propel myself through the process and finish the script quite easily and quickly. I say easily, it's not easy obviously, but definitely my biggest challenge, and I'm sure a lot of writers would agree, is just getting that first word down and doing that first page and confronting the blank canvas, if you like. I mean, in relation to the previous episode, I don't actually do much planning, so I've not really got any excuse for this. I should be the kind of person that does just dive in and get writing. But I think what I do is kind of collect all these thoughts and ideas in my head a little bit too much and become encumbered by that. And I think I do feel a certain degree of pressure, put pressure on myself. And it all kind of stems from an expectation versus reality situation. To be honest, that kind of flows through a lot of my life as well, my just daily experiences. I will put a lot of pressure on myself and get quite anxious about events and things that I need to do, build them up until in my head it's the worst thing ever. But once I actually go out there and do those things, it's actually not that bad. And I know that is something that's easier said than done. To just dive in and do things is very difficult for a lot of people. But it is something I think that a lot of writers need to challenge themselves with and overcome. And I think the key is that is kind of removing that pressure as much as possible and knowing that whatever you write in this first draft isn't going to be perfect, and we know that. And that's from the very first word to the last word you write in that script. So just diving in there and getting it done is definitely the best way to confront this issue. It makes me think a lot about a quote from the film Ex Machina with Oscar Isaac and Domhnall Gleeson. Their two characters are having a discussion about Jackson Pollock, the artist, and Nathan, Oscar Isaac's character, asks Caleb, Domhnall Gleeson's character, what would happen if Jackson Pollock needed to understand every single stroke of his brush? And the answer is, of course, he would never paint anything. Nothing would ever get painted. And I think it is that feeling of, you don't need to understand why you're writing these words or that everything is exactly how you want it to be in the end. It's just getting those words down there. And for sure, the sooner you do get some words down there, the sooner that blank page isn't blank anymore and it looks a lot less scary.
Hi guys, my name is Kristen. I'm a filmmaker, very much at the start of my journey still learning a lot. I'm enjoying meeting lots of lovely people, including the JumpCut team. Thanks very much for having me, guys. I'm really excited to be in the studio, which I love. I'm one short film down that I wrote and trying to work on more projects. I hope this video, people don't take this video as an indicator for my filmmaking skills, firstly. Terrible lighting. I definitely find the blank canvas intimidating. I'm sure everyone does. Especially in terms of actually writing the words that people say, which sounds silly, but I find it quite easy to just jot down notes, to jot down notes for the idea of the story, and I like I have probably napkins and ripped pieces of paper everywhere with just random story ideas, but actually then going on and giving it a start, middle and end and giving the characters words to say, that's definitely intimidating. So I wanted to do some research. I didn't go to university or anything. I studied film at college, but it was literally film studies, so we didn't really learn how to create things. So I as I said, I didn't go to university, so I want to make sure that I'm learning as much as I possibly can. There's so many things online out there and so many great people to talk to. And yeah, because I knew I wanted to tackle a feature film. I had a rough idea. As I said, that part I don't find as daunting. I enjoy jotting down random ideas, but it was really daunting to me to come up with a structure for it and a journey for the film to go in a start and an end, and different twists and turns and things. So I did I was digging through the internet and doing some research, and there's so many different sort of structure plans and things that you could follow, and I realized that it's a case of finding which one works best for you. I do not know all the names of all the different structures. I'm sure a more experienced writer probably would, but I found one that worked for me, and it was basically, I've got a big whiteboard over there in the corner, which I find very helpful, by the way. I would turn it around, but I'm not in the tidiest room right now. But it's basically full of boxes, and each box has a title, so it's got setup, new situation, progress, and then complications, final push, and aftermath. And that's sort of how you block out, how I've been blocking out each section of the film. And I'm doing all the different literal, not writing words or anything that the characters say yet, just actual things that happen in each of those moments. Each of those boxes as well, I've given a sort of a percentage, so how much roughly of the script would you like it to take up. So like the very start and the very end are probably the shortest parts, and then the middle parts bulk it out. I once got some great advice from a writer called, I think his name's Andy Weir, and he wrote The Martian, the book, which since became the Matt Damon film. And he very kindly responded to an email of mine that I wrote to him. I somehow found his email address when I was like 14 years old. And he very kindly replied, and I had asked him just for some top tips on being a writer, especially a new young writer. And one of the things that I've always remembered, he basically said one of his top tips would be to avoid, where you possibly can, avoid telling people and showing people your story. Especially sort of family and friends. Try and keep it to yourself for as long as you possibly can, because he said once you tell people the story and tell them about it, it almost diminishes your want to carry on, or it satisfies, he said, it satisfies your need for an audience. So yeah, just keep writing. And it's so, I'm finding, as I'm still learning what even being a writer is, I'm finding that it's so difficult to have confidence in yourself. I often don't consider myself even a writer, but I think you've got to have that confidence and know that writing it's subjective. So anyone can write, really. Whether you're good or not, that's another question. But again, being good or not is subjective. Some people will like your script, and some people will hate your script and find it boring. My style of writing is, I'm sure many people consider very boring, but hopefully some people find it has a bit of heart and a bit of emotion. So yeah, just having that confidence to know that there is an audience.
So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I think there's been some really great tips that I'm personally going to use going forward with my scripts. And we'll see you again next week. Stay safe, and we'll see you there.